Hello. Thank you for watching Taxpayer Alert. I'm Al Segalla. I'll be your moderator. I'm also president of the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association. We have an exciting program. This is the second of two parts. We have the District 1 supervisors, each having their own program. It's a runoff election to November. And the other candidate is Gary Toffanelli, former supervisor. And our guest this time is Cliff Edson, currently supervisor and chairman of the board. And we hope to be able to have both these programs for you shortly. And welcome, Cliff.
Thanks, Al. How you doing?
Just great.
Good.
All right, Cliff. If somebody doesn't know you, what should they know about you?
Well, I'm Cliff Edson. My wife and I own Country Cliff's restaurant here in San Andreas. We've had that restaurant for over 10 and a half years. It's been a struggle. We had opened a Mexican restaurant a couple of years before that, which is now, what's the name of that restaurant? It's called Macada, I think it is. And it's changed a couple of times. So we have invested ourselves in this community. I've been very active in the community. Was with San Andreas Recreation and Parks District for a while, so we could help the town hall get upgraded and things, and also our parks. And I started going to the supervisors meetings because of the terrible economy that we were having here, and which is kind of was kind of weird to me because we have such a resource-rich county. And we really should be insulated from that sort of thing, at least a little bit. And so I learned a lot there, and I decided to throw my hat in and put in my bid for supervisor, and I won, and I'm here now.
Well, that's fine. Now, how large is your family? Your wife helps you with the restaurant?
Yes, my wife is actually the one that runs the restaurant. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have a restaurant.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law, Myra, works there also. I have an adopted daughter working there, Martha. And I have 3 kids myself. I have 2 daughters. My oldest daughter is Jessica Edson, and now Braddock, because she's married. She has 2 of my grandkids. They live in El Dorado Hills. My son-in-law is Jerome Braddock, and my son lives in Tracy. He works for BSNF Railroad. Been there for about 12 years. He's not currently married. And my other daughter lives in Montana, and she just had a brand new little baby on May 30th, the day before my birthday. We were trying to make it, but she couldn't, so that's great.
You're a grandfather.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, that's wonderful, Cliff. Now, one of the things that we're concerned about, I guess, is economic development, and you're also concerned about that. And tell us your thoughts about economic development.
Well, economic development in this county is been pretty much snuffed out by the amount of regulations that we have. And some regulations are necessary, for the protection of our citizens. But when you overregulate and double up on fees and things like that for businesses, you just keep them away. They don't want to come here, and it's pretty evident by the amount of businesses that are in our neighboring counties. And here we are with barely anything. And so you do that long enough, and you actually lose your workforce, and you lose the ability to, even if a business were to come here, to be able to find the right type of employee for a business in many cases, because they're all evacuating the county. There's no opportunity for them here. So I started with education and got Delta College to come here, and that's been a struggle. And also got them to collaborate with Columbia College, and Columbia College is really great to work with. and got and now they've opened a campus in Vallecito, so we have students that are staying here longer, which means we have an opportunity for workforce. I worked with the Chamber of Commerce to get a resource. It's a resource, a business resource center, and business resource center is going to be funded by a grant from the Sierra Business Council, which is it's a partnership we've had for many years that has never been really taken advantage of. And so they're going to receive a $250,000 grant, which is going to go towards fostering businesses, helping businesses retain, helping to find businesses resources, and to teach people how to operate business. And that's going to be at the Hubbard Building at the beginning of San Andreas, Old Town San Andreas, which is now empty, but it won't be because the Chamber of Commerce will take that building and make it into this business resource center. And that's like having as a matter of fact, with the grant comes an economic developer. And so we'll have an economic developer that's it's not going to be a government. It's not going to be a government
official.
Well, we have people that work for the government. It costs the taxpayers a lot of money, and so if you try to minimize that and still get your greatest benefit out of it, that's a good way to go. So instead of having an employee that you were going to pay all that overhead on, it's going to be taken care of through funding through a different source. So through grant process, and then the idea there is to build in some value added products to keep that person there.
What is the source of the funding for the to establish the entity?
It's through the Chamber of Commerce that is the entity already, so they already have an income source. But the grant funding was, I believe, a USDA grant.
Okay, so the federal government.
It was, and largely because when we had the fire, there's the federal and the state government recognized that we're going to have some economic problems anyhow within the county.
Right.
So they made this available to us as a fire victim.
I see. Okay. And so the economic
Business Resource Center.
Business Resource Center, and it has a director, and the director will not be funded by local taxpayers or the chamber.
No.
It'll be funded through another grant type.
You're talking about the economic development
coordinator.
Yeah. Yes, that's funded by the grant.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. And it's a 2-year funding.
Yeah.
But like any grant, you don't really want to take it on unless you can develop something that will make it sustainable. So. Right. So the goal here is to make that position sustainable through what they develop and the services that they will provide. Now that it's like startup for a business.
I understand over the last 10 years or so, there's been very little or any development in San Andreas at all, even though there's been projects proposed. What's happening with that?
San Andreas is a funny one. Businesses come and then they go. And one of the issues here is we have relied totally on tourism and agriculture as our industries, right?
Right.
All of the other industries, like the forest industry, mining, and whatever other industries that were here before, are gone. So we only have the agriculture and the tourism left. Well. The problem is with that is when you just rely on those two industries, you have tourism, which is relying on somebody else's discretionary income.
Right.
Well, when you have a economic downturn in another part of the state or anywhere else, that affects you immediately.
Yeah.
And you're the last person to recover from that.
Right.
With agriculture in our county, our biggest issue is water.
Yeah.
If we could move our water around, we could have better agricultural possibilities. And you can grow more better animals, more animals, and maybe do some other types of crops. We don't have the ability to move the water around because we're broke.
Right.
Right. So we have to work our way into that. And one of the ways that I was able to figure out how to do that is with an RCD, Resource Conservation District.
Okay.
Because a resource conservation district can help with water projects,
Okay.
and with flooding projects, and with deforestation projects, to prevent wildfires and things like that. So that's why I brought the RCD to the ballot as a vehicle to be able to have more possible projects and to support our economic development in the county.
Now, the RCD is basically a regional government type entity that's a joint powers agreement. Is that correct?
It's a special district,
Okay.
and like any other special district, it'll have a board.
Right.
It'll have to develop a director. This particular special district does not cost the taxpayers here anything. It's not relying on them.
Right.
Its goal is to go out and find funding for projects that will bring value to our county, and also to try to find funding for, let's say, I wrote a watershed management program a couple of years ago. Been trying to get it going, but I didn't ever have a vehicle to help steer it or to receive funding to be able to make it happen. This can do that. So I'll give you a quick example. If you took an area of land like our forest, which has now been under-managed for many years, if you went up there and if you managed it for the greatest amount of snowpack,
Right.
all right, you're going to get a greater water yield out of that.
Right.
That water yield is worth something to somebody. It may not be something that we can capture, but somebody should pay for that.
Right.
And then the RCD would then go after the somebody that should pay for that and ask them to reinvest back into our county to recreate the same thing in many other areas.
So that'd be the farmers in the valley and the consumers of water.
Correct.
I see.
So that makes it not a taxpayer burden, but it creates a value-added product that is marketable.
I see. The cost for doing, we're talking about clearing the forest and allowing openings, which is pretty intensive. If it's not done by logging, then it has to be done with the chips or some other way to take the fuels out of there to open the area up. And in the past, my understanding is that it's not cost effective because you can't make enough money from the chips or the forest products to pay for the effort for doing that. So that means that it would have to revert to the taxpayer in some way.
Well, it is going to be now because of we waited too long. We took away the forest industry many years ago.
Yeah.
We should have kept it so that and then dialed it in to make it work for the environment.
Yeah.
But instead, people get a little bit. Sometimes they get a little passionate about things, and
Right.
then you get into this mood swing type thing. It's not healthy for politically, or it's not healthy for our environment or our economy. So now we're faced with a forest that is going to pretty much lose about 80% of its conifer trees.
Yeah.
And there is no market because it's flooded, because the whole Sierra Nevada forest, up at least to Alpine County, is going to go away because of bug kill.
Yeah.
If we'd have started this 50, 60 years ago, there could have been a managed approach like what I want to do with the watershed program, and you could keep the products viable in the market and keep that value and have a very good result.
So that the increased snowpack actually increases the water table for the trees, and if the trees are not starving for water, then they can build sap that protects them from the bugs. Is that the way it works?
Well, I'm not really a biologist, but I can tell you that when trees are too close together, like they are right now, they compete for water and nutrients, makes them weak. Right. And then, the bugs and other things are going to harm them.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you want to put them far enough apart, and, there are folks that know how to do that.
Right.
They put them far enough apart to where you can get the snow on the ground. That's the most important thing. Instead of on the crowns, it would be on the ground.
Right.
And it lasts longer on the ground because they get some shade, for the trees. And then it melts slower. Right. And then you have a longer period of time where you're going to get that water supply. And if you build in some really good erosion control techniques, you can slow down the sediment travel and recharge our aquifers and just have a better system altogether.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a very positive thing.
It's very positive.
One of the things that is big discussion now is the marijuana issue.
Yeah.
And it's getting confusing.
Is it?
Yeah, at least to me, because my brain is not big enough to go around. We got two, we have one ordinance that's a long-term regulation ordinance, but it cannot be in effect because you need to have an environmental impact report, which I understand has just been approved. And then we have a short-term emergency ordinance that was passed on May 10th, which essentially freezes some types of marijuana, or maybe all marijuana. I'm not quite sure how that works. And then we have two competing local referendums, one to ban commercial marijuana, and the other one to regulate it. And then we have, on top of that, a statewide initiative to legalize recreational marijuana. Did I cover all of it, or is there more going on?
There's a little bit more, but I can explain it.
Okay.
So what we have right now is a urgency ordinance. That we placed the urgency ordinance because we were having an influx of folks from all over the place. When California said, "Hey, we're going to open our doors to legalize marijuana," there's people from all over the United States started beaming in on us. It was already here. Yeah. It's been here for years.
Right.
We didn't really, I didn't pay much attention to it because you couldn't see it until the fire came along, and that just exposed everything. And then it also brought in more people because it was cheap land that was already manicured, right?
Right.
So we are a water-rich county, and that is one of the good things about any type of agriculture.
Right.
But so the urgency ordinance is a ordinance that is very restrictive. Between May 10th and June 30th is your application date. You have to be in that time period to be eligible to grow.
So that's existing people as well as new people?
If you are already growing as of May 10th, you're eligible. If you weren't growing as of May 10th, you're not eligible.
Okay.
And so the county took some satellite photos of the county, and they'll be able to tell who was and who wasn't.
Okay.
Right. So with a GIS overlay of the APN numbers and a map of the outline of each lot. So there's a lot of other restrictions that are in there to make sure that our communities are protected and to make sure that they're not too big. Okay. So it's 22,000 square feet total.
And you talk about commercial?
Canopy size, yes.
Commercial, okay.
Yes. And there are many restrictions, including each person that applies has to have it's a $5,000 application fee. There's a $10,000 EIR through the Department of Water Resources, and they have to be background checked by the Sheriff's Department, and the Sheriff decides who does and who doesn't get to grow here. There's also lots of rules around where and how much, right? So that gets a lot of people out of the closet and into a situation where they're not hiding and black marketing anymore. We have a huge problem that I don't think that many people realize. There are folks up there that have, let's say, 30 properties, right? It's been going on for 10 years, maybe 15 years. They've been growing on all these properties for this long, and there's millions and millions of dollars, black market money that was being made there.
Yeah.
That doesn't do anybody any good to have illegal black market operation that big around you.
Yeah.
So what we're attempting to do is scale it down, make it safe, and fund our sheriff's department with some really great funding. And so far, we're going to give them about maybe up to $1 million and let them enforce.
Okay, that makes sense. It seems to make sense.
Yeah, I can't think. I mean, it's been banned for 60 years I've been alive. Hasn't worked.
Yeah, and the question is, passing a law is one thing, enforcing is another, because you try to predict what the people will do. Will they comply, or will they try to go black market, or what? How would they, if they think that they have the constitutional right to grow stuff on their property, then you might have legal questions that will come up. And in the meantime, we have an overworked county council and district attorney that's going to try to protect the county.
Right. Well, most of this that's going to happen now is going to be civil.
Okay.
So it's going to go through the code enforcement team, a lot of it.
Yeah.
The sheriff are going to go after the people that are illegal.
Okay.
So what we've done is before the growers could grow with their 215 cards, they could have stacks of them and grow pretty much what they thought they wanted to grow. Now the 215 cards are not the deciding factor. The deciding factor is our ordinance. They have to follow our ordinance to be legal. If they don't follow our ordinance, they're not legal. And the sheriff now can look at a APN number and a property and tell if somebody is legal or not immediately.
Right.
Before, it was just too much research. It was too cumbersome for the sheriff's department. Now it gives them a clear picture on who is and who isn't. If somebody is following the rules and is legal and they're doing things right, they're a legitimate business, it's not a black market operation, then that's acceptable.
Yeah.
If they're not, it's not acceptable. And now we have an enforcement team through this ordinance that can actually go out and enforce.
Yeah. Oh, I think you can fine the people and then have a lien against their property. Is that correct?
Yeah, it starts off with some fines. You're going to have some time to get into compliance. If you're not in compliance, it's a $1,000 a day fine. I think it's up to 10 days. I'm not quite sure on that part.
Yeah.
But once that period of time is over, then you get an abatement notice.
Right.
And I know that you have 3 days to abate. If you don't abate, then we'll abate.
Okay.
As a county.
The county, yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll go in there, and all that costs will go right back to the property.
I see. What about the relationship between landowner and leasee? Say that the landowner leases the property. This would imply that the landowner, even though it had nothing to do with this business, would probably have a responsibility or maybe an obligation for the consequences of what the leasee does. Is that correct?
Ultimately, the landowner is responsible.
Okay.
And there's folks out there who have been leasing out to these growers. Until now, it's pretty much been a cash deal.
Yeah.
So I can understand, how people get mad about that. But we have to think of the safety of our citizens.
Right.
And also we have to think about our environment and what's being done about, how correctly these operations are working. So it's really important to make sure that we save our water and our land and keep it as clear as possible.
I understand. Changing the subject a little bit, going to budget, there was some discussion with the other candidate on unfilled positions that are funded, and where this has, because there's many of them, that at the end of the budget cycle becomes like almost a reserve of money that's there, almost like a slush fund. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like it might be better to try to fund, to try to fill all positions that are funded, and if you can't, maybe eliminate the position itself. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so most of those positions are with the Sheriff's Department. We've been pretty successful in the past 6 months or so, maybe a little longer, about filling those positions. I think we're only down 3 or 5 right now.
Right.
The real problem with funding these positions and keeping the positions is the amount of they're getting paid, basically. You know,
not competitive with the counties.
We're really not competitive with a bigger, larger city that has more money than us.
Right.
But so we have to do other things to be able to make up for that. And we're doing quite a bit of research on that, working with the Sheriff's Department.
Yeah.
And I think that we're starting to make a good headways. As far as that unfunded positions,
yeah,
the county just swoops that and puts it back into the whole budget process.
Right.
And each business unit knows that.
Yeah.
And they try to get their budget balanced. This year we balanced our budget,
right.
And the sheriff's office actually got a couple of extra things because we were able to find some funding without using one-time funding or the teeter fund.
Well, that's good. Now our last topic is with about 3 minutes left is the asphalt issue. You have thoughts on that? Well, it looks like it might be resolving itself. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's not resolved yet.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be it's close.
Yeah.
Maybe by tomorrow.
Oh, that's close.
Yeah. And so, there's been a lot of hype around this.
Yeah.
A lot of false information, scaring the heck out of people.
Right.
The plant never did open, never got to be constructed.
Right.
Everybody's talking about like a conditional use permit or EIR and all of that. The quarry has a conditional use permit on it to haul rock out of it,
right?
Which controls the transportation, all that. The asphalt plant required an EIR,
right?
And that was going to take quite a while. So there was some negotiating going on since around March. I got involved in it a little bit. I can't get involved in it too much.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to be successful, and it's moving.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now we're coming to the end of our program, and we want to thank you for participating in this. It's the very first time we've ever done this with two not having a forum, but doing interviews instead, and I think it's going to work out okay.
Good.
The main thing is to try to get as much information to the public so they can make the choice at the polls.
Right.
And so we try to do this in a fair and balanced manner. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we're really, really proud of is we've been at this for a while now, and it looks like from the feedback we've been getting, we've been apparently doing a good job.
Good.
And,
good, Al.
Yeah, and so we want to thank you for watching Taxpayer Alert. This is the second of two parts. The other one is the challenger, Gary Toffanelli, former supervisor, and now we conclude our interview with Cliff Edson, current supervisor and chairman of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Very much.